Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. And if you're not here live tonight, we hope to see you watching the recording some other time. We are very glad to be here tonight to share information about wellness on dialysis. And I'm excited about this topic because it's our chance to address something that is a challenge for a lot of folks, which is staying emotionally and physically well with a chronic disease and having a good life, which is what it's all about. Our sponsor for this webinar is NxStage Medical, and we are going to first start out with some introductions. And I will tell you that I'm Dory Chattel. I run Medical Education Institute. We're a nonprofit organization. Our mission is to empower people with chronic disease, mainly kidney disease, to manage and improve your health. And I'm going to then go to Vanessa, and I'll call on.
Okay, well, thank you, Dory, for having me. My name is Vanessa. I am a dialysis patient myself. I've been on dialysis for actually 28 years, did in-center for 8 years, and have been a home patient for about 18 years. I'm also the director of advocacy for Fresenius, so hearing patient stories and advocating for patients is very near and dear to my heart, always looking to elevate and talk about the patient voice. So thanks for having me.
Thrilled to have you. I did not realize it had been 28 years, so I was a
I
little
know. Who's
surprised.
counting? Who's counting?
Right? Exactly.
Not me. Yep.
So speaking of years, Beth Witten and I, we were just figuring this out, have worked together for literally half my life. I'm not going to say how many years that is, but half my life. So Beth, tell us a little about you.
I am a nephrology social worker. I've worked with dialysis and transplant patients for a number of years. I worked for 18 years in 3 different clinics. And since, well, this will give it away, since 1993, I think it was, I have, in one way or another, had a relationship with Medical Education Institute and have done a variety of other things, but I love home dialysis patients. I just really get a lot from working with patients that were on home dialysis. And the very first clinic I worked at, the doctor was a big home dialysis supporter. So I've worked with a lot of home patients.
Me too. All right, I'm going to go to Jen, who is also with MEI. And she and I have been kind of working together for 7 years, but 2 of them at MEI.
So it's actually funny. I met Dory on the Home Dialysis Central Facebook group, which we are now streaming on. I was a home dialysis nurse at the time for about 10 years. I was interested in advocacy and I wanted to talk more with experts about home dialysis because I had a lot of questions, and that's how I found Dory. And now I'm program director at MEI.
And we're so thrilled about that. And Jen was both a PD and a home hemo nurse, and we are going to be talking about both PD and home hemo tonight. So we're not focusing on one or the other. When we say home, we mean all. So we're kind of your crew, and then we have our special guests that we are really, really excited about. So Dawn Bates is a care partner with her husband, Jimmy, and you can see her. I don't know if you can tell us she's in her RV that they travel the country in, which is amazing. And I'm just going to very quickly say that Raymond Scott is on home hemodialysis, and he's done all sorts of different treatment options. And so I'm going to have each of you tell your story a little bit and just sort of where it started and wellness based on which treatment options you, Raymond, or Jimmy for Dawn were doing and how those affected wellness. So either one of you can start, totally up to you.
Go ahead, Raymond.
I'll let Dawn go first, ladies. And my mother trained me well, so.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Okay, well, like Dory said, my name's Dawn Bates. My husband, Jimmy, is a home hemodialysis patient, but he wasn't always. So when we first reconnected, because anyone who knows us knows that we have known each other since we were 12 years old. And 25 years after high school, quick reconnected, and he was already an in-center dialysis patient. And he wasn't doing so well. You know, 3 days a week, he was very wiped out, exhausted. And 3 days a week was literally dedicated to dialysis and recovery. About a year and a half after he started dialysis, the home nurse at the clinic he transferred to when we got together asked if he was interested in doing home dialysis. And he really wasn't, because of all the barriers, everything he had seen in center, like, his blood pressure would drop, or he would cramp, and who's going to take care of him? Because you know what? The techs in the clinic, they do a really good job taking care of people on dialysis. They do. And he didn't realize at that time, he knows it very well now, that he married a very pushy lady. And I was just like, just try it. And if you don't like it, go back to doing what you're doing. And he did. He tried to experience a difference, and that was all she wrote. He's been doing it ever since. He did have a transplant. It didn't turn out so great. It wasn't a great experience for him, but looking back at where I was then to where I am now, I was one of those people that he's going to get a transplant. We're going to have a normal life. And that just didn't happen for us,
Sometimes
and
it
that's
does.
okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Because I look at where he's at now, and like you pointed out, Dory, where are we? We're in the camper. We've been in the RV traveling around for the last 6 months, loving life, thriving. Who could ask for more? It's awesome.
So, in what ways is Jimmy's wellness enhanced? And tell us how many, I know how many days a week you guys dialyze, but everybody else doesn't.
So Jimmy chooses to dialyze 7 days a week.
Okay.
Because he feels better. He knows that a normal functioning kidney is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and he can't get the 24 hours a day. But for him, he wants that 7 days a week. He doesn't always get it, but if he can, absolutely he will. And how is his wellness is, it's like somebody flipped a switch, Dory. It's like he is so much healthier and happier. And we've gone through 27 states in the last 2 years, and he's doing all the driving because I'm not pulling this camper. I'm not doing it. So he's
Wow.
got to feel good.
Better.
Mentally, he feels good. Emotionally, wellness is on key because he wants to go to concerts, and he wants to go to bike rallies, and so we're doing all those things because he's thriving. And who am I to tell him he can't?
Awesome. That is awesome. And I've been lucky enough to meet you guys, so I've gotten to see you and Jimmy in action, and he looks great.
Mhm.
So Raymond, tell us about your journey, because it has had many twists and turns, and you are doing all kinds of interesting things, and you've done lots of different options. So you have a really broad perspective on this.
Oh, yes, definitely. First of all, I'm Raymond Scott. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, originally from Charleston, South Carolina. You don't hear any accent. I lost that a long time ago.
You could get it back.
No. So I've been on dialysis for 26 years, or I am a dialysis warrior of 26 years. That's in center mixed in with I've done peritoneal dialysis. I've had a transplant that lasted 5 years. And for the past 11 years, I've been on home hemodialysis. I'm also an 8-year veteran of the United States Army, not just the Army, but the United States Army. I'm highly motivated, very creative, and I'm a stalwart father and husband. 26 years ago, I met my wife. We were just dating, went into urgent care, had a high blood pressure of 280 over 180. By the time I got to the emergency room, I was 300 over 200. So that's where it all began for me. I'm also co-person for our nonprofit, which is 1 in 9 or 1in9kidneychallenge.com, which 1 in 9 exists to create hope and change the trajectory of kidney disease. Along our path, we've learned much, but I have to say, as far as wellness goes, I was not the best dialysis patient. In fact, I was corrupt. I showed up at dialysis with a spicy, crispy chicken sandwich.
Oh, you were that guy.
And large fries at
That guy.
dialysis. And this nurse told me, Mr. Scott, you're going to get sick and you're going to pay for it sooner or later. I was taking off 4-5 kilos a treatment. They don't even do that anymore. And my wellness changed when I had my son. So there's a lot at risk. I want to be here for my son. I don't want anyone else teaching him how to shave. I want to teach him how to shave. I want to answer those questions that he may have. So I had to look at something else, a treatment that was going to help me, and that was home hemodialysis. After the 3rd treatment, I was sold. I'm going to do this no matter what. And my wife was like, okay, good. Let's keep going. So I went home one day after training. I said, you know what? I think I can go to the gym after dialysis. So when I went home after training, I started going to the gym after dialysis. It was such a change in my life. Now, as a dialysis patient, you experience many ups and downs. And there's been many times where I even questioned God, being a Christian that I am. Why, God, is this my cross to bear? Why me? There are so many people out there who aren't living right. Why me? Well, the answer that I got back was, I've given you a wife that's going to be a stalwart for you, or your bulldog, and she is a bulldog with me and the doctors. I am going to give you a church family that is going to care for you and pray for you. I'm going to give you a family that is going to support you. So I don't want to ever hear you ask me why you. So I have never asked again, why me? This is the path he set for me, and this is the life I am living. And with his grace and his mercy, I've been here for a long time. Just turned 56, March 12th. So,
and if I recall correctly, dancing through life?
Oh, that's where the twists and turns come in. I'm also the first patient actively on dialysis to perform with the National Kidney Foundation of Arizona at their big dance gala. So I was what is the word called? I was a dancer.
Dancing with the
Dancing with the Stars gala, and the first patient actively on dialysis to do it. They had patients with transplants do it, but never someone actively on dialysis. So that kind of speaks to home hemodialysis, which I am also a patient advocate for.
Fantastic. Yes.
Dory, if I could just say something, because I feel like Raymond touched upon something, and we're talking about wellness, and wellness is not only the physical, right? It's also the emotional and like
the spiritual.
something, and the spiritual, right? And so something that I feel that resonated with me, and Raymond and I are both longtime patients. He's on a number of years, and so am I. And people a lot of times will say, well, how do you do it? Right? Like, I don't know that I could do something like that. And I think giving yourself the peace, that emotional space that you have accepted this, right? You have accepted this diagnosis, and how are you going to then live your life within this diagnosis? And we all have different paths. Like, I'm different than Raymond, and he's different than Jimmy and Dawn, and etc. So it's finding the right space. But I think one of the reasons we do well in this kind of spiritual, like emotional space, is maybe the acceptance and the peace of the diagnosis of where we are. And I don't want to speak for Raymond or for, Dawn and Jimmy, but I can say for myself, I feel that because I have kind of that acceptance, and it's not always perfect, but I know where I am and I know what I need to do. It's allowed me to live what I consider for myself a normal life. And so part of that is just finding that inner peace, and it's different for everybody. Beth, I'm sure, could tell
You-
us a lot about this too.
Well, I just was going to say quick, do you know Henning Sondergaard?
I do, yes.
He just wrote me a blog this morning that's going to run next week on exactly that topic. Basically, accepting versus fighting, and the value to you of coming to that place of peace about, this is a thing that you need to live. You need sleep, you need food, you need oxygen, you need dialysis. It's a thing you need. You can hate it and fight it, or you can work with it.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you know,
that is very true. Go ahead, Beth. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say,
Oh, Dawn.
and I know for us, for Jimmy and myself, that the first time around before he got his transplant, it was constantly waiting for that phone call for that transplant. It's we're going to get that kidney and we're going to have this normal life. And when we went through all the things that we went through with rejection and having to get back onto dialysis, and as bad as things were at that time, I think that's when it was our moment in saying, you know what, if we need to do this for the rest of our lives, so be it. Just thank you for letting us do it. And it was a total acceptance to where, if we get a phone call for a transplant, okay, but we've also turned one down, because it wasn't for us. So
Well,
truly, it's about it, like Vanessa said, it is about coming to that full acceptance of this is what our life is, and being okay with it.
Right.
and another thing I think that's really important, and I gather from what I've heard from you guys, is choosing a treatment that fits with you, with your lifestyle, your values, what's important to you, rather than just accepting what the doctor might say, not knowing you very well, and might say, well, you need to do this treatment or that treatment. It's important, I think, for patients to speak up to their doctors and to say, this is what's important to me. And MEI has a decision aid that I would hope more people are learning about and doing. It's available.
Just put the link in the chat to everybody.
And you can
and by
type,
the way, everybody can ask questions too. You can ask in the chat or in the Q&A.
and you can just type into Google or whatever search engine you use, My Kidney Life Plan, and find it that way too. So, I strongly recommend that. What might be a choice for a treatment for me, which, by the way, I have chronic kidney disease myself. I'm not on dialysis, but I have used this decision aid to know that more than likely I would be choosing a home modality. I would choose a home treatment for sure.
I would if it were me too.
There's a thing called radical acceptance, and it's something I used to talk to patients about a lot. And it's kind of it's a concept where, let's say you're driving somewhere and there's an accident and you're stuck in traffic and you're late somewhere and you're very upset that you're late. But there's truly nothing you can do about the fact that you're late. So you have to accept the fact that you're late, let the bitterness of that situation go, and accept the reality for what it is. I'm going to be late. It's already happened. There's nothing I can do about that. Let's go forward. And I think that one of my favorite things about home patients, especially home patients who are out there living life and doing things, is that you guys have that level of radical acceptance where this is what it is and we're going to just keep going forward. And it's an acceptance. And I also wanted to point out that between the three, I think we have like 60 something years of dialysis experience, like
Probably more.
patient experience, probably more. All at once. It's pretty remarkable.
We're a lot of knowledge in one place.
A lot of knowledge in one place.
A lot of knowledge in one place. But I love what you said, the radical acceptance. I feel like that definitely resonates with me. And understanding that, and because I'm in that space of radical acceptance, I'm just living life and I'm dialyzing, right? And I'm dialyzing. And it goes back to what you were saying, Dory, which is okay, I work, but guess what? I just walked on the treadmill for a half hour. I don't do anything crazy. Like I'm not trying to run a marathon. And you know what? I know patients that can do that too. But I think we're all so very different. And moving, being with friends, being with family, all those things are so good for you, like that social, emotional wellness besides the physical, because I do think we need to move. And sometimes that's hard to do, particularly with patients. We have good days and we have bad days. And there might be days that your hemoglobin is low and you really just might not be able to walk, or move or do those things. So what other things can you do during those times, or how do you find that space of healing and like physical and spiritual emotional health on those days that you're not? And I'm sure that we're all very different there, but that radical acceptance is in my mind probably like a line that we all kind of have, and perhaps why we are thriving while also being patients.
So, what supports your wellness? What have you found to be helpful if you're, and this for any of the three of you, if you're having a day or even a week where things are not going well or you're not feeling well, what helps you to get back to where you want to be?
Well, I know for myself, as the care partner, because you know what, Jimmy's disease affects me.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And so we have to work as a team, a very finely tuned machine. Okay. And so there are days when I might be stressed, and anybody who knows Jimmy knows he's just this laid back, go with the flow kind of guy. And I'm like, we gotta do I'm a control freak. I'm a total control freak. Um, but for me, I will tell you, stepping back, taking that deep breath, sometimes reaching out to my friends, because I am part of a care partner support group that started 3 years ago. And we have a messenger, group that we message every morning. We message each other every morning,
Is
you
that is
know.
that group on Facebook, or how did
It
you find
is.
it?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
good, good.
Yeah. And I was in the very first meeting that they ever had, and I've never left. I feel extremely blessed that I've been able to meet all but two members of that group face to face in our
Wow.
travels.
What's it
Yeah.
called?
It's called Solus Alliance.
Okay. So how do you spell Solus, like SOLACE, or?
Yes. Yeah. And we meet on Zoom every other Wednesday night.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
It's
that is
I just think it's important because sometimes we need to just go blah, and I remember during the height of COVID, one of my dear friends, her husband was in the ER, and at that time all you could do was drop him off at the door, and she is losing her mind
Oh yeah.
because her husband's in there. She is his care partner. She can't be in there. She worked at this hospital and still couldn't be in there. And we did what we call a back call. And we got a call on Messenger. All the girls hopped on that call and sat on the phone with her for 2 hours till the
Oh,
policy changed at midnight and she could go in. So
wow.
truly, truly,
wow.
these are
Oh,
my people. Okay. These are the people when I'm stressed, that's who I reach. And they're the ones that'll kick me in the butt if I'm not taking care of myself, because they know.
so support from other people in the same boat is really
Yes.
important for you. How about you,
Yes.
Raymond? What's important for you?
Well, what's important for me is family and my time with my family. My family, and even my daughter and my son especially don't even know it, but they are the force that motivates me. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, man, I don't feel like going walking a couple of miles, or I don't feel like working out today. I just think, am I going to be here to walk her down the aisle? Not on crutches, not in a wheelchair, but to walk my daughter down the aisle. That motivates me. And I've learned being a soldier that you have to at times find things that motivate you, that pushes you past that point where you won't go back. And I look at my daughter and see her, she's captain of the volleyball team. I have to be there to watch her play. This weekend, I wasn't feeling that well. I had plantar fasciitis or whatever and couldn't hardly walk.
We've all been there, I think.
And it really hurt me that I couldn't go to her volleyball game. But not being there for them is what motivates me. So if something happens, and there's been frequent occurrences, if I was to go over my medical history, I would have to end it with and a partridge and a pear tree. They just a lot. And they motivate me, they push me, they drive me, and they don't even have to know they're doing it, but I know they're doing it. It's those things that I want to be a grandfather. I want to be a grandpa. I want to be there for my grandchildren.
I could see you being a great grandpa.
Feed them ice cream and candy and send them home.
Yeah.
Payback.
And Dawn, you are a
That's
grandma.
what motivates me.
Oh,
And that's
yeah, 14
my
times
wellness
over.
and how I cure my wellness, especially when things mentally are not going so well.
Yeah.
And that happens too. But I also receive a lift even from the patient and patient advocacy I do with NxStage, and listening to their stories and what's going on with them and how happy they are and thriving. I take all of that in. But that's how I deal with it.
Thank you. Yeah, that all right. So we've heard
Oh, we're all crying.
support from others in the same boat, love of family. How about you, Vanessa?
It's a little well, I think it's a little different. I don't necessarily have a support group that I check in like a Dawn, but I think I get a lot of motivation from my family for sure. I'm very lucky that I have such a supportive husband who helps me out. My mom has always been a leader, like advocating for me. I think from the time I was diagnosed, I was kind of taught that, okay, you have a chronic illness, but life goes on, right? So even on days that I'm down, I allow myself to be in that moment, but I also know that I'm going to be fine the next day or in a couple of hours or whatever it is. One thing that I think helps me a lot and just gets me out of funks, I love listening to music. I like to listen to it loud. Anyone that knows me knows I love to dance. And so I just kind of make fun of that piece. That doesn't mean that, I don't have down days or anything. I think we all have down days though. And so I think, again, I'm going back to that radical, what did you call it, Jen? Radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance.
Right. I'm going to go back to that radical acceptance because I don't dwell in things. I'm pretty good at just kind of being in that moment and moving on. And so I think that's how I lead my life, which allows me to kind of be the person that I am. But I think we all need to find kind of our zen, our space. What is that space? I definitely like to go out with friends and family and do things that most people like to do. But I also realize my limitations, and sometimes I just might not be up for it. And that's okay too.
Well,
Yeah.
and sometimes
And that's true of everybody, whether you're on
Yeah.
dialysis or not, that's just life.
and sometimes
It's life.
people-
Exactly.
And sometimes people get depressed. I mean, that's just the fact of life, whether you've got a chronic illness or not. And what do you do when you get depressed? Well, a lot of people do just the thing that's the worst thing that you could do for yourself, which is to crawl into bed, pull the covers over your head, make the room dark, and avoid people. And if anybody could tell you what will make you more depressed, that will do it. Where if you say, okay, I don't feel good, what can I do? I could listen to music. I could watch a funny comedy on TV. I could call up a friend. I could go for a drive. I could get outside in the sun. I could go for a walk. I could play with my pet. There's so many things. I could garden. There's so many things that people can do to lift their spirits and to take care of themselves. So it's, I would say, figure out those things that make you feel good about yourself and do those things.
Yeah.
What I hear is that loneliness is a challenge for a lot of people. And with the internet, it seems like, I don't know. I mean, I sort of, I mean, I don't live alone. I live with my husband and my daughter, but I kind of just feel like, well, if I did, I would just pretty much be online all the time, finding things that are interesting and people to talk to and music and,
New employees.
yeah, but I mean, you can meet people all over the world. Even if you can't walk out your door, you can bring the world to you.
But there's a downside to that too, because a lot of the stuff on the internet, well, first of all, there's a lot of stuff on the internet that's crazy, but
That's true.
there are all these people,
Like
there are all
me.
these people who talk about what wonderful lives they have, and they show the pictures of all the places that they're
There's a lot
going.
of gilding lilies out there.
Yeah, and so sometimes that can make you, feel like, gee, I'm not doing those things, so it could make you feel jealous, actually, of some of
Yeah.
those types of things.
There's
And
always people doing better, and there's always people doing worse. So you
Yes.
have to just kind of figure out where
We got a really nice Facebook message just now.
Oh,
yeah. David Rush is out there watching on
David!
Facebook. He wanted us to say hello and thank you for always helping spread awareness.
Oh,
So
We
it's
love
nice.
it.
Thanks, Dave.
It's nice.
We have to
It's
give him
nice
a
when the
heart.
other net famous
exactly.
people come
Yes,
on.
let's all give him the Taylor Swift heart.
I
Okay,
love it. I love it.
Zoom just made those hearts. I did not do that.
That was magic.
It's like,
That
how
was
did
magic.
you do
I know.
that?
How does that work?
that
We
happen
have
I
to do
don't
that.
know. I've never seen that before. It was kind of a shock.
I did want to say one thing because I think, Beth, what you hit upon is very true, that people get depressed and people can feel like, why me, and I'm all alone, and that, and again, I think that we have to allow people that time to grieve, and understand that it's like part of the process. And there are resources out there, right? There's the social worker at a clinic that you can speak with, and then there are also resources like a dietitian at a clinic that maybe could help you. If it's something to do with weight or how you're feeling. Sometimes it's changing your diet. Sometimes it might be changing. Sometimes it's medication that can give you, side effects. So we're very quick to like blame ourselves and live in this space. A, I think you need to grieve, and B, I think you can use your resources that you have when you go to a clinic where there are great social workers and great dietitians and a care team that can help you kind of explore other possibilities that you may have not thought of in the past because they've talked to other patients and they're trained to speak. So I just want to throw that out because I don't know that we always, I feel like as a patient, and patients, tell me if you agree with this, a lot of times we get like, oh, you did great, you have a star on your reports, right? But there's so much more than that than you can be doing with your social worker and your dietitian, and have some real meaningful conversations, really understand like, where do you want to be, what's the right modality for you, speaking with your family, like, where is your mental capacity at this point. And so those social workers and dietitians actually are a resource that can do more than just kind of grade you, right? Like
Mm.
there's a lot that they can help with.
Let me ask you a question because I kind of heard Dawn's answer and Raymond's answer, but were you had your kidneys failed before you met your husband?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was
So
on dialysis. So he
really,
has never known me except being
right.
a dialysis patient.
What I hear a lot, because I think an important
Yeah.
aspect of wellness is relationships,
Yeah.
connecting with other people, whether that's a partner relationship or, friends or whatever. But for partner relationships, especially, there are, I think, a lot of folks out there saying, oh, I'm damaged. Nobody would love me. Nobody would want me. And that's so not true. It's not true. And we know so many folks whose relationships started after their kidneys failed or started before and continued, because we've all got, none of us are perfect. There are no perfect people out there, internet aside, they're just, so, I mean, okay,
It's
Kardashian might
true.
look
I mean,
perfect, but there was a lot of
it's
plastic surgery involved there.
no, but I think that, that again, that goes back, that is very true. And don't get me, I thought that too, right? I mean, I have a fistula, like that's not a very pretty looking thing. It's like 10 times worse now than when we met, right? It's like very eye jarring, but it also saves my life and it's my lifeline,
Mhm.
right? So again, it's coming to that acceptance of it.
Mhm.
And I think part of it was also like, if they're not going to love me for who I am, then they're not
Right.
the right person
Oh.
for me. But you
You,
have to be sure in yourself with that too. Like
you have
there's
to
a lot with
know
that.
that you have value
Right.
beyond your physical health,
Right.
Absolutely.
because you do.
Which is hard.
Because I
We
have
By
to
the
all
way,
do.
say
we
that
have a
I
question in the chat.
Yay.
Go ahead, Raymond. We can talk
oh
after.
I've had moments in my life, being a young man. When I got out of the military, I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and nothing could touch me. Where after years of being on dialysis, I stand in the mirror and say to my wife, look at all these scars. And you still love all of this? And she said, well, listen, babe, let me tell you, I don't see your disease. All I see is you.
Aw.
All I want is you. I
Oh,
don't care about the disease. I know you
Mhm.
have it. We're living with it, but I don't see it. So it doesn't matter. The scars I don't see. So I looked at her like she was crazy, but she said, I mean it. But it's just something, you come to that realization that, that I'm going to live with this the rest of my life, no matter what.
Yep.
So she is with me no matter what, because she
Yep.
definitely been with me through the hard times. So when it
Yeah.
gets easier, and it does, she'll still be here with me. And I've been fortunate in that fact. All of us have. Vanessa,
Yes.
Dawn. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yeah.
is so crazy. You meet patients, especially in patient advocacy, who are doing it alone,
Mhm.
by themselves, with no family structure or anything. So if this person can do it alone by themselves, then I have no excuse for my doing it with my
Yeah.
wife and with my family.
Yep.
It's amazing. The power of your family and the power of believing, even in yourself is so important. And those are things that can take, years to work on, right? But they're all important for your social, emotional, spiritual well-being, and physical well-being. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna change it for a minute because Dawn Edwards, we all love Dawn. We have another celebrity amongst us here, Dawn. Um, she she posted a question, and it's actually to you, Dory, Beth. It's good if I could read. Beth and
Well,
Jen. She
Ben
wants
is
to know.
Jen plus Beth equals Ben.
Sure, that makes
Right.
perfect
So there
sense.
you go. I'm literally making people up. But she wants to know what has given you guys the most joy in your years of helping patients find home therapies? Because actually, going back to Jen, what you said, the three of you have been in home therapies, have had loved ones that are dialysis patients, for many, many years. So the question from our rock star friend Dawn is, what has brought you the most joy in this space? So is there a volunteer that wants to start first?
I do want to start first. So I worked in this field for 10 years before I learned that my step grandfather, who was the only grandfather I ever knew, died on dialysis in 1968. He was one of the very first patients. This was before the Medicare ESRD program. And I knew he had passed away, but I didn't know what from. So that was just a huge shock that, because I really loved him. But the very first person I met on dialysis was Terry Oberly. Beth knew Terry because Terry was the husband of the woman that we both went to work for, Edith. And Terry's kidneys failed when he was in medical school. They were married, they had one son. He had Alport syndrome, and so did his identical twin brother. They actually wrote a book about it. And Terry was having a great life. They settled on home hemo. Edith was her care partner, his care partner, and he finished medical school. He became a renal pathologist. And then because he was a renal pathologist, he never got a transplant. He saw nothing but diseased kidneys and just for some reason just never wanted to risk it. His sons offered, he said no. He did dialysis for 43 years.
Wow.
So, they had an amazing life. They traveled, they had a cabin, they went to Montana, he practiced as a doctor. He actually outlived Edith. And yet I knew at the time that the average lifespan on dialysis in this country wasn't very good. So there was this giant gap between the possible, which was Terry, and Nancy Spave, who was one of the longest lived kidney patients in the world.
Yes.
And, Beth and I met her when we met each other. So, 30 some years ago. And for me, the motivation was to shift the curve, to move more people toward having that good life that I knew was possible, that not enough people were having. And every time I see somebody living a good life, that's all the motivation I need. You guys motivate me.
And for
Well,
me,
thank you.
I will
keep doing what you're doing.
Piggyback on to Dory. For me, the other love of my life is rehabilitation. Having an opportunity to help somebody live for their goals, live for their dreams, to try to help somebody see that they can do the things that they may have thought they couldn't do, and to see them actually do those things. That's more common with home patients. I mean, home patients just, have more flexibility and can do more things. So that's what kind of got me into it. And I worked with a doctor who, I'm in Kansas City, who came to Kansas City to the University of Kansas Med Center, which is where I started working in dialysis and transplant. And she came from Seattle, and she was a big home dialysis enthusiast. And we had like 40% of our patients at home. So doing PD or home hemo. And that was where I got my start. That's why I got my love of home dialysis patients.
And it was really personal for you, Jen.
Oh, it was personal for me. It continues to be. It never stopped. So I went to art school first, and after I got out of art school, and then my grandmother, her kidneys were failing. She had diabetes, and I was lucky to live in an area where there was an established home program. So I was 18 at the time. So my mom and I both actually became nurses because of the experience that my grandmother had. And while my grandmother was at the dialysis clinic, she ended up meeting a friend who sat next to her. And it turns out that I knew this same person from work. So she was a friend of mine. I'm still friends with her. She's one of my closest friends. She's on her second transplant, but she's had 22 years of dialysis. She's had 2 babies, did mostly at home. And it kind of crescendoed from there. It's like, you know how kidney people come into your life. So my favorite thing has been watching people rise. I love
Rise.
watching people
Yes.
rise. It's so invigorating. It feels so good to see that, you know, you can see a person at a really low point in their life, and if you can get through to that person, you can make a connection with that person, you can help motivate a person, and motivation is everything. And when you get someone goal-minded and motivated, and then they start living again, and it's so amazing to think about all of the years. I mean, as a home nurse, I can't count how many years people have lived longer because of home dialysis, you know, because of what we've been able to teach. But it is a crazy high number. I mean, there's a lot of years that we give back to people, and I don't think there's a greater gift you can give to anybody than time. That's
Good
the best
time.
thing you can give, good time. And I think that's
Youthful
what home
time,
dialysis does,
productive
is
time.
good,
Yeah.
yes, go like live your lifetime. I mean, Vanessa is globe trotting, Dawn is all over the country with Raymond's on Dancing with the Stars. Y'all are living. That's the entire point of what we're doing here. I could be
Yes.
exercised all week, and you guys, mine are fine. So that's what makes me happiest. That's what does it for me. That's what keeps me in.
Wait, did you say you did exercise all week, or you did
No,
not?
I hate exercise. I came on here to get inspired from you guys. Please tell me how. I have no.
I think we need to ask
Perfect.
Raymond what his daily exercise routine is. 'Cause
Yes,
I have a
we've heard
feeling
it's
it's
pretty
impressive.
interesting.
So my routine is mostly cardio. I do a HIIT routine. You know, anything that gets this blood going, like 150 beats for each minute. Anything that keeps, you know, I'm going because I know it's at stake, and I know and seen those people who do not do anything, you know, not even walk, what they succumb to. So
See,
I've
now
always
I'm gonna
said
walk.
that you have to take control of this disease, or it will take control of you.
Good advice.
So I'm running a marathon.
Absolutely.
So that's the way I look at it.
Oh, not an
Wait,
actual.
Wait a
I
minute,
think
wait a
all our
minute. I'm
mouths
not
just
running a
dropped at the
marathon.
same time.
I'm saying
Yeah.
in life, I've done enough running in the Army. I'm not running anymore. I walk.
I feel ya. Walking is great. It's an
Yeah.
excellent choice. Yeah, there was a fella who did do an Ironman triathlon.
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually remember him. Yes,
too.
that was impressive.
Well, and you know, back in the day, with working on the advisory council for the Life Options Rehab program that I met Dory through, Patricia Painter was an exercise physiologist. She's now retired. She talked
In
about,
great shape.
yeah, she talked about the cycle of deconditioning. You know, that if you don't feel like doing anything and you do less and less, and before long, you know, I would tell my patients, you know, if you don't move, you're going to end up needing a cane, then you're going to need a walker, then you're going to need a wheelchair. Where if you're in a wheelchair and you start doing more things and you get some physical therapy, you could get out of the wheelchair, get onto a walker, get onto a cane, and eventually not need anything. So, you know, sometimes we would push patients to do more. Some of our patients were not thrilled with us pushing them to do more, but in the long run, it helped them to live a fuller life and be able to do more things that they wanted and needed to do. So again, that was my rehab thing. You know, I was like all in.
I need Raymond to text me every morning and make me do something.
You can text me your exercise, Raymond. Just make me feel bad. Tell me you did, and then I'll go do it.
Just know that every morning I'm doing something.
Yeah.
Raymond can do it, I can do it. There's my motivation.
We
Right.
all need a little motivation, and it's finding what's right for you, right? I mean, we're telling our stories here tonight, and you might resonate with them and you might not, right? Like, we are all very different. And I think that I always want to make that distinction, because what might work for me might not work for somebody else, but at the same time, I think we can learn from one another, we can inspire one another, we can grow from one another. And so even just coming together today, like, honestly, Raymond, like, you telling me that you get up and your heartbeat, I'm like, okay, I have to make sure that I do something. And even Beth, what you just talked about, like pushing yourself a little bit, because you can end up going one way, right? Which is getting away from the walker and finding the space to walk on your own, or having all the assistance. So I know for me, like, I'm aging, I'm on dialysis a long number of years. It is important to move. And it's funny because even the last month, you know how you wear your little watch that tells you, you're moving, you're not, time to stand up, which it always is telling me to do. Well, the other day it told me that, I think my move goal is up to by 200%. Why? Because I actually started walking again. And it's amazing how, like, you can just sit in a space and not think about like everything that's going on, right? And so I had to motivate myself to be like, no, you have to try to walk, even if it's, a couple of steps, a mile, whatever. I don't need to run a marathon, but I do need to move, and that's important. And the correlation of kidney disease and the heart is that's a real thing, right? That is a
Really
real
is.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anything that we can do to help us, stay healthy and be strong is something we should think about as well. And I would encourage patients to speak with their healthcare team, about what is right for them, what can they do, because you want to make sure that you're staying in a good space, and sometimes you have to allow yourself to feel bad, but then you gotta try to rise up again, and it's not always easy to do.
And there are things on YouTube that you can click on in your own home and listen to music and do some physical exercise, just moving your legs or moving your arms. You don't have to run a mile. You could just walk around in your house.
Yes.
There were patients that I would say to them, go walk in your neighborhood. And they would say, my neighborhood's not safe to walk in. And I'd say, okay, just walk around inside your house. Or,
Hmm.
if there's a mall near you, go walk in a mall, or go to Target or Walmart and walk around. Unfortunately, sometimes you see things that you feel like you couldn't live
That's
without when you go
dangerous.
there.
Yes.
Can't go in there without
That
spending
could be
100 bucks.
dangerous, right?
Dangerous to your budget. So we've got about 6 minutes to go. So what I wanted to do is sum up really quickly, like the top 3 themes that I think I heard from all of you were the importance of acceptance, coming to a place where you accept that this is your life and you work with what you have versus fighting it. Support, whether that's from a group, whether that's from family, whether that's, finding your own inner motivation, and exercise to stay physically healthy. And I just want to ask each of you, Dawn and Raymond and Vanessa, if you had somebody come to you, and this does happen to you because you're all advocates, you see people all the time. What sort of advice do you give them to maintain their wellness or increase their wellness?
I will tell
So,
you that
go ahead.
because I talk to many, many people on a regular basis. And one of the things that I say is this is an investment in yourself, and you're worth it. It may not always be easy, but you're worth that investment. And it's not about dialysis, it's about quality of life.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Agree hard. That is such an important point. Thank you.
Mhm.
Raymond, Vanessa, Vanessa, Raymond. One of you guys.
Raymond's muted, so I will speak.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, there you go, Raymond. Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. I said ladies first. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. See, I'm with a Southern gentleman. So yes, I agree wholeheartedly with what Dawn said. And I think it's important, like for the wellness part of it, especially is to find a community of peers. I'm a big believer, which is why I love advocacy. I really believe in peer-to-peer education and peer-to-peer support. So I always like to steer patients to like your support group and other support groups,
Mhm.
because there's a variety of questions and things that people want to know and ask, and they want a safe space to do that. So I think it's important to find that peer, that is important. And I also think it's important to try to have some stillness like in your mind. So we talked a lot about exercise, support, and coming to acceptance. I also think that like trying to quiet your mind and doing like some breathing and things like that have helped me as well over the years, when I go through different stages, not only with me, but like with my kids and other things that happen with your family, right? Like it's not, you guys know me, I don't always say life is not always unicorns and rainbows, no matter if you're a patient, in kidney disease or a patient somewhere, because everybody is a patient somewhere. So just kind of
Absolutely.
take that
We're
piece in.
all
We're not
patients.
alone.
Maybe not
Yeah,
kidney patients, but we're all patients. Dawn popped in and said her motto is do what makes you happiest, which I love.
I love.
Raymond, how about you?
All right. I guess it's my turn. And I have to agree with Dawn and Vanessa totally and entirely. But the one thing that I do tell patients, and they could be no matter what the modality or even if they have transplant, is stay disciplined. Discipline, discipline, discipline. It's easy if they're a new patient to home hemodialysis to go home and say, you know what? I think I'm going to skip tonight. It's easy to do that because you're not being confronted with that, not yet. But to stay disciplined, these modalities, transplant, you take your medications on time, every day. Have your phone or your watch set to it, but stay disciplined because it's easy to backslide and sometimes it's hard to recover. So stay disciplined.
You are so right. I have backslid from the gym since I got back.
So
I'm just thinking where
military.
you live, actually.
The army.
Yep, I went to Arizona and just got totally off track. So now that I've heard from Arizona man, I'll have to get back on the treadmill.
It's good
Army says
advice
so.
though.
It's
The
excellent.
routine
Really good
and
advice.
discipline is very good advice, particularly when you are a new patient and you're starting a home therapy. It's very overwhelming in the beginning, socially, emotionally, like physically. You have boxes, you are alarms, training, etc. And so the more I always tell new patients, if you can just, it kind of goes back to what Raymond said, but think of it as like a new baby. When you have
Yes.
a new baby,
I
you
say that
right, you
too.
put them to sleep at a certain
Yep.
time, they wake up. So the more that you do like a routine kind of a schedule, the easier it gets. Like believe it or not, you start to come out of that fog and you start to understand it. It's not like always going to go perfectly, but the more you can do a little bit of a routine, the better it is. And if you can incorporate some of the tips that we talked about just for your social, emotional, physical, spiritual health, it's really worth it.
Fantastic. So we are 1 minute before the hour, so we've done this like as close to perfectly as we possibly could. I want to thank our wonderful guests, Dawn and Raymond and Vanessa and Beth and Jen, and everybody who asked questions and everybody who watched and didn't ask questions, and everybody who's going to watch this video when we put it on Home Dialysis Central. Thank you all. Thank you to our sponsor, NxStage. We appreciate your support to be able to make things like this possible. And I hope everyone has a wonderful night.
All right, you do
Thank
the same.
you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you.
I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you guys.
This was as much
Thanks,
fun as I
guys.
figured it
Lovely.
would be.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you guys.
Yes.
Likewise, highlight of my
absolutely
week.
Mine too.
Bye, all.
Oh, live a good
Bye.
life.
All right.
Right.
Take care. Thank you.